Welcome everyone. My name is Sean, and today we got to talk about this absolutely insane story out of the city of Chicago, where the woke mayor Brandon Johnson has decided yet again to institute a policy change in favor of the criminal, and this time he's done so by getting rid of the city's ShotSpotter technology, because God forbid in a city that is plagued by shootings, there's a system to detect the shots and send police there when people are unwilling to call 911 to get them there. I'm not kidding about this. This is actually what's going down, and the case that they cite as a justification to get rid of this program is completely asinine and ridiculous, and honestly should go to show you how damaging horrific left-wing reporting is on criminal justice related issues, because it's 100% a hoax, and a shameful one at that, and that's what we got to talk about today. But before we do, I want to thank everybody who signed up over at actualjusticewarrior.com/join.
Give me the money. Give me the money. Okay.
And thank you to the podcast listeners, Spotify, Apple, and Google's podcasting platform.
Even on the campaign trail, Mayor Brandon Johnson said that he would remove ShotSpotter from the city's budget. Critics say that the service is unreliable and leads to unconstitutional policing. Others, including police officers, say that it's a reliable resource, especially in underserved communities where the code of silence still maintains.
So if you're a sane and normal and rational person, when you hear that the ShotSpotter program is unreliable, immediately your brain starts churning and you start thinking of reasons why the program would be unreliable. Maybe there's a lot of false positives. Maybe when people set off fireworks, that activates the ShotSpotter program and it ends up misdirecting police officers to scenes that are not particularly dangerous or something to that effect. But the thing is, throughout the whole course of this segment, and they do have advocates for getting rid of the program in this segment, nobody mentions this. Nobody cites this. In fact, the things that they cite to determine the unreliability of the program are actually proof of the reliability of the program, and of course any rational person could see that if they're actually aware of the cases that they're pointing to. But on the other side, they bring up the fact that this program is put in particular areas with high rates of gunfire that also happen to be largely gang controlled, where people are less likely to call 911. So if somebody is under threat of being shot, but they're afraid to call 911 because they might get killed later for trying to be a witness or so-called snitching, then this program allows police to be deployed to that particular area in order to aid the situation without actually causing somebody harm for reporting the crime. It seems like a good idea, and even if there is some rate of false positives, it would seem like it is worth it. And if you're going to say that there's unconstitutional policing after the fact, like the police show up and they just search every random person without even reasonable suspicion, then you can address those issues on that end rather than just nuke the program because Brandon Johnson is a woke idiot and he promised this on the campaign trail based on an insanely stupid and ridiculous case, an insanely stupid and ridiculous premise. And again, I know I'm spoiling a little bit, but trust me, it's going to be that bad of a reason.
35 cities have already said this technology is unreliable.
In September, right after the DNC in Chicago, ShotSpotter will end. The technology alerts police in real time to locations where gunshots were fired.
So I just want to point out that ShotSpotter is going to expire. They're not going to renew the contract. And whether coincidental or not, the moment that it's going to expire is right after the DNC, because God forbid we got rid of this technology when the Democratic National Convention is in town. Those are important people. Those are people that matter. The everyday citizens in these poor black neighborhoods that, by the way, largely voted for Brandon Johnson, they don't matter. If they get shot up and there's no police response, that's A-okay. That's business as usual. That's what Brandon Johnson promised. But God forbid anything happens to anybody at the DNC, we must protect and save the Democratic National Convention from the average everyday occurrences that people suffer in the city of Chicago, because why would we worry about them when we could protect the elite, the Democrats? And by the way, I'm not being hyperbolic about this. The program actually is set to expire this Friday, February 16th of 2024. They're extending the program to the length of the DNC and then letting it expire then, even though they claim it's ineffective, leads to all these negative outcomes, and is a cause of unconstitutional policing. Interesting how that works. It's ineffective, doesn't do anything, doesn't prevent crime, but we're going to extend it anyway to the DNC rather than putting in the supposedly more effective programs, and then we're going to get rid of it for the average everyday citizens. Yeah, we can't see through this.
I feel it's very disrespectful of the mayor to make a decision like this without even getting the input of the community.
So here you have some people who are pointing out that Brandon Johnson didn't consult with the communities that actually have ShotSpotter. He didn't get for feedback. He just made this ridiculous and absurd campaign promise, and now he's delivering on it. And then they go into the cost of the program, which, by the way, is going to be about $8 million. And I'm not sure if that should be a lot or that should be viewed as a little for the program, but considering the high volume of shootings in Chicago and their particular gang culture, it would seem like this would be something that is worth the money, especially when you factor in other things due to other woke policies that make Chicago more and more dangerous.
In place since 2018, ShotSpotter cost Chicagoans about $8 million annually. City council members speaking in Inglewood today outraged by the mayor's decision not to renew the contract, saying with the department down more than 2,000 officers, many residents are not calling police.
So the Chicago Police Department is down 2,000 officers since the Black Lives Matter riots, since these reforms like defunding the police, handcuffing them in all these additional ways. And this is one of the reasons why we are actually seeing a decline in crimes reported, which is making it look like the crime rate is dropping, and a widening of the gap between that and victimization surveys, which includes unreported crimes. So yeah, this program of ShotSpotter can help direct the fewer and fewer officers that are actually walking the beat in the city of Chicago to locations where serious crimes are being committed, and yet it is being pulled back in order to save $8 million. Allegedly, that's the excuse, or one of the excuses that Brandon Johnson is putting forward, and it seems like it's ridiculous and absurd, but again, they say they have their reasons, and they're going to make the case for those reasons. You're going to be able to hear it. You're going to be able to judge for yourself. But I'm going to tell you right now, it's nonsense, and we should hear a little bit more from the opposition.
And we're here to tell the mayor that he's wrong, that he needs to change his decision and listen to the community.
Black and brown communities hear gunshots all the time. There are some communities are immune to it. So therefore, sometimes people just don't call the police. ShotSpotter saves lives. Why? Because the police will still respond to that call.
So here you have some representatives pointing out what the purpose of the program is, that it sends police more quickly because they don't have to be called in or anything like that. And there are areas where people are basically numb to the gunfire, which again is absolutely tragic to hear in the third largest city in the United States of America. But it is in fact true. It is something that happens. And there's also people that are just afraid to call 911 based on the fact that the criminals are running the show in many neighborhoods in the city of Chicago.
On the other side, several cities have rejected ShotSpotter because of inaccuracies and red flags.
What the Inspector General's report found is that the police enter every single situation with a ShotSpotter report, guns blazing, because they think that there's shots being fired in that moment.
So this is Alderman Carlos Ramirez Rosa, and I want you to think about how stupid what he just said was as a criticism of the Chicago police. He's like, they enter guns blazing. They're ready to encounter a gun. And it seems like they're more ready to encounter a gun when they're responding to a shot caller call than another random call. And he can't possibly understand why. He's showing us confusion in his dumb face. And I just want to point out, it's because the ShotSpotter told them that a gun was fired recently. So responding as if you expect to encounter a suspect with a gun would seem like it's reasonable. This reminds me of when Bill de Blasio got rid of the anti-crime unit of the NYPD, and one of the ridiculously stupid reasons cited for doing so was the fact that disproportionately the anti-crime unit ended up being involved in officer-involved shootings as compared to other units of the NYPD. Now, the reason why this was so absurd is because the anti-crime unit is very poorly named. What it actually is the anti-illegal gun unit. It is specifically out there on the streets to confront and deal with armed suspects. And when you are confronting and dealing with suspects armed with a firearm more than any other unit in the NYPD, why would it be surprising that you end up being involved in more police shootings than any other unit in the NYPD? So this doofus right here is repeating that same stupid idea, putting it out there in the public, and somehow this guy is a representative in the third largest city in the United States of America instead of somebody bagging your groceries, because that's really what he's qualified to do based on that level of thinking. And by the way, it's going to get so much worse.
And in the case of Adam Toledo, what occurred is it led to that little boy, that 13-year-old boy, being shot and killed.
Adam Toledo? He just said Adam Toledo. He said in the case of Adam Toledo, the fact that the cops went in guns blazing led to the shooting of that innocent little baby boy, that innocent little child, that kid named Little Homicide, who was a gang member, who had a firearm on him, who reached for the gun. He was tossing it, but in a split-second decision, he ultimately ended up getting shot. We actually covered the Adam Toledo story on this channel. We actually covered lies from people about that story as well, and we refuted that by going into the videotape. And one of the things that I want to point out to you guys out there in the audience is that Adam Toledo was out with a 20-plus-year-old man, and they opened fired on video. You can see it for yourself at 3 in the morning or 2:30 in the morning at a random car or at a random place. So clearly and obviously, they were presenting themselves as a danger. Then the 20-year-old gangbanger, the thug, the criminal that he is, when he heard the sirens, decided to pass off the gun to the 13-year-old under the belief that if the 13-year-old was caught with the gun, he would face less consequences than him being the adult, the 20-year-old. So Toledo and him ran in different directions. An officer pursued on foot. Toledo had the gun in his side, and the officer told him to put his hands up. And instead of putting his hands up first and not getting shot in that particular situation, Toledo tried to ditch the gun by reaching like this to his side and tossing it aside casually. And then he threw up his hands. So what we actually saw on the video was a bang-bang split-second decision that in no way, shape, or form should condemn the ShotSpotter system. This ridiculously stupid alderman thinks it is better for the city of Chicago to have two gangbangers, a 20-year-old and a 13-year-old, open fire randomly at 2 to 3 o'clock in the morning in the streets of the city of Chicago, than for the police to show up to a situation like that and confront them with the force that is necessary to deal with that situation. And I wish I was joking about that. I wish I was being sarcastic. I wish that this was not the case, but that's specifically what he cited. Little Homicide is what he wanted to go with as the example of why Chicago needs to get rid of this life-saving program.
In a statement, the mayor's office saying in part, quote, law enforcement and community safety stakeholders will assess tools and programs that effectively increase both safety and trust and issue recommendations to that effect.
So of course the mayor releases a worthless statement saying, don't worry, the community is going to come together and they're going to talk about and think about and come up with solutions that are going to improve safety and trust. And one of the things that will definitely improve safety and trust is having 13-year-olds fire weapons at people at 3 o'clock in the morning, because that's who we're trying to protect. Oh my God, I can't believe the police in a bang-bang split-second decision shot somebody who had a gun on him, who was reaching for the gun in a way that looked like he could turn and fire at any moment, based on the idea that they were just firing that gun moments before, and that's why the police were on the scene in the first place. How dare the police react in a rational, sane, sober-minded, reasonable way to that particular case? Let's get rid of their ability to detect gunshots so people can live under constant gunfire and the police will never show up in their area.
Now, we must add, in the case of Adam Toledo, a gun was found in his possession.
Now, the local news guy says, we should note that in the case of Adam Toledo, there was a gun found on the scene. Adam Toledo had the gun on his person. We saw that on the video. We saw him reach for it and grab it when the cop told him to put his hands up. And guess what? When you do that and you look like you're about to pull the gun out and shoot at the police officer, you're likely to get shot every time. Is it tragic that a 13-year-old was killed? Yes, 100%. But you know what? You're not checking the ID of the person who's reaching and grabbing a gun out of his pocket in that moment to determine whether or not you fire. What you're actually assessing is whether or not your life is in danger or whether or not you're going to be killed by this person. And it was very likely, based on when he had his hand on the gun to when the shot was fired in the video, that this could have turned out badly for the officer had he not reacted in that way. Yes, it's unfortunate, but in reality and actuality, it's 100% justifiable shooting. But hey, those are just my thoughts. Let me know your thoughts down in the comments below. If you like this video, then show me by leaving a like. You can subscribe for more content, follow me on all my social media, support me via the support links in the description of this video. This has been me talking about the absolute craziness of Chicago getting rid of ShotSpotter. Till next time.